Paul Marsh here on Express, and I'm delighted to be joined via a Zoom by Jay Allen, country music star. How are you doing, sir?
Hey Paul, we're in the UK, man. It was a journey to get here. I
I always feel really. It's only happened to me once, but obviously losing luggage is not a great
yeah.
thing, is it?
No, it's all good though. It's on its way. It's supposed to be here tomorrow morning, so it is what it is, man. I've experienced a lot worse in life than losing a bag, so we roll with the punches, my friend.
Very true, very true. Now, let's start at the beginning, and I feel really awkward in saying this, but a lot of people will know you from The Voice. Now, that's not the beginning, obviously, because you didn't just wake up one day and decide to go and enter The Voice. So, just tell us briefly about your career, where it began, and then it led to that point of The Voice.
Sure, honestly, I never thought I'd be the guy on The Voice. I kind of did everything in my power to not go on that show.
Hmm.
It is a storyline focused show, so they actually reached out to me 5 years in a row, and I politely declined. Like I said, I never thought it was right for me. I was more of a philanthropist more than anything. We've been a part of helping raise a lot of money for the fight against Alzheimer's and putting attention on the sixth leading cause of death in the United States. I don't know what it is here, but I know it's high up here as
Hmm.
well. But really long, very long story, long-winded story short for me is my mother was diagnosed with what's called early onset Alzheimer's. I'd been living in Nashville for a couple years and doing kind of what every up and coming artist does, and kind of on that path that was very selfish, and it felt very empty, and I didn't really know the direction I was heading. But I was writing music for full time for a career, and my mom got sick. I'll never forget. My dad called me. I grew up in a little town in the Midwest, and a little state called Iowa, and I'd been away for a couple of years. And Dad called me one day, and he said, "I have a story for you. I feel obligated to tell you as your dad." He said, "Your mother has been sick for a long time, and I've kind of held it from you and your sisters. But she called me this morning, and it became very real and evident that I needed to let you know." She called me. She'd been going to the same place at work, driving there every morning for years and years and years. I called him crying, had pulled over on the side of the road, said she didn't know where she was going, where she was at, and please come pick me up. And so she was officially diagnosed then at age 51. They call it early onset because she was so young and that was so rare. Unfortunately for us, it progressed so quickly. It took her life in 2 years and 9 months.
Oh,
And so
wow.
another phone call, I'll never forget. He said a couple months later, he said, "Jay, again, as your dad, as your pops, I feel like it's my obligation to make sure you get time with your mother before it progresses any further." So he made that. It was about an 11-hour drive for them from small town Iowa to Nashville, Tennessee. And every 2 hours, he would call me. And my dad's not an emotional person and doesn't talk like this ever. So I knew he meant it when he said it. He said, every 2 hours, he would call and say, "Prepare your heart, Jay. This is going to be the hardest thing you've ever had to experience."
Oh,
I
wow.
was her oldest child. I was her only son. So, there's something very spectacular and beautiful about how a parent looks at their child, especially a mother. She had an adoring look on her face when she looked at me. She raised me to make me feel like I was not only the center of her universe, but the center of the universe. I was a very cocky, spoiled kid because of that. We didn't have a lot financially, but we had a lot in love. So I expected that look from my mom when she walked in the door of my home, but I got the opposite. Unfortunately, she looked through me like I was a stranger. She had no idea where she was or who I was. And you have two options in life: fight or flight. It's always been fight for me. In that moment, I was so taken aback and so heartbroken. I chose the latter. I chose flight. So I said, "We got to get out of here. We got to go somewhere and escape this moment." So my dad got my mama all dolled up. We went out to a well-known saloon in Nashville called the Sutler Saloon, and we've all heard about the power of music. Uh, I hadn't experienced it until this moment. So we get to this saloon, we open up the door, and we take one step inside, and my mother sees the band on stage, and she hears the music. And people that have dementia and Alzheimer's specifically have a blank look on their face. Um, and when she saw that band, she heard the music that went away, and she wanted to go inside. She was suddenly happy and alert, and so being the oldest child, I took advantage of that moment. I pulled her to the front of the venue, right in front of the stage, in front of everyone, and we started slow dancing to a fast song. And I felt my mother just take this deep breath, and she leaned in. Hadn't spoken a word to me since the moment they arrived. She leaned in and she whispered in my ear, "Oh, it's so good to see you, Jay. I love you so. It's so good to be here." And in that moment, I felt the power of music for the first time ever. And so I was inspired. Like I said, I'd been writing music full time as a career for a couple of years, but I have to work really hard at it. You know, I'm married to a country artist that's signed to a major label, Kylie Morgan. She
Oh,
has
okay.
songs on the radio, and um, I'm not like her where she wakes up in the middle of the night and writes a full song and goes back to bed. It comes easy for her. For me, I got to work my butt off to write a song. But that day I just felt like I was gifted with the song. I don't know how to describe it, but I had this whole concept and this whole idea. I could even hear the melody standing in my kitchen the day that my mom and my dad left to go back home to Iowa. And it was this line, it was just drilling me in my head and in my heart. It said, "I still see you. I still see you in between those blank stares." And for me, it was the saddest experience of my life, but somehow I was able to see the silver lining and turn it into something beautiful through song. And for me, it became a mantra when I wrote that song, where I told myself I'm going to go to war against this disease, because if I was in my mother's position, she would do the same for me. The most selfless human being I've ever met in my life was my mother. So I've tried to be selfless for her, and I've turned my entire focus onto that. And I finally took that phone call from The Voice, and I guess I didn't realize I finally lifted my head, and I share with the world that we've helped raise $100 million to fight against Alzheimer's, and
Wow.
it's just because of that one moment that I was gifted a song and made that intentional decision to turn something that could have wrecked my whole world into something that's given my life purpose. You know, we lost my mother, but her life gave mine purpose, and that's brought us to places like this. Now we get we're playing a few shows here in the UK and get to meet awesome individuals like you. So that's why I went on The Voice, to share that story and to sing that song Blank Stares. And the producers got behind it in such a beautiful way and shared that story. And it's gone on to so many more beautiful opportunities. But the story doesn't end there, because I went on that show. I think I saw myself in a different light, and others did as well. So I was offered a record deal. So I was, and now we're getting to release really fun music. And even though I'm, become kind of known for this cause and this purpose and this song, I'm that guy that's covered in tattoos that always likes to have a good time. If you're around me in my circle, I will go out of my way to make sure that you're having the time of your life, and always got a beer in my hand. So I got a 5-piece band, and we're touring full time and releasing really fun music as well. So it's kind of a full circle for me, where there's a lot of sacrifice for a lot of years, but now it's very, very rewarding. So
Absolutely unbelievable story. I mean, I know this is for radio and you can't see, but I shed a little tear there because it's unbelievable. I do want to get back to talking about your mum and Alzheimer's in a second. Before
sure.
we get serious, I just want to ask one more question about The Voice, which is basically probably the question that everybody gets asked, which is
Sure.
how did it feel when those chairs turned? And especially somebody like Blake Shelton.
Yeah, for me, it didn't really feel it felt just like playing another show until you're out there and all the cameras are on you and you're in front of, there's something about the magic of television, and so you watch something on a television screen, it's so much bigger than life. So when you're there in person, it's like kind of a pinch yourself moment. And for us, Blake Shelton, especially in the States, he's the king of country. So to be in front of him is suddenly like, I don't really get nervous, but suddenly I was, trembling like a small child. you know, uh, I honestly, I honestly was more smitten by Gwen Stefani. I remember telling Kylie I was going to do the show, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, pick Gwen." That was her immediate response.
Wow.
And I came back from the show and I was like, "Well, I did what you asked, but I'm sorry to tell you that, and now I have an even bigger crush on her. So if things don't work out between her and Blake, bye." And it was cool. It was cool. The coolest experience, like when they're playing a role, and they're hired to be a personality on camera and on TV, and I got to see that side of them and really admire their work ethic, and but I also got to see them strip down, and in a different light. Blake and Gwen actually came to my last show of the year last year, 2022. Blake had reached out and invited me to play at his hometown venue in Tishomingo, Oklahoma, at his old Red. And so we did our sound check, and then we went back to the hotel and got ready. And then we came back and we were walking down into the green room underneath the venue. And my guitarist, he walked down the stairs and he peeked around the corner and then he looks back at me and he goes, "Who's that cute blonde sitting on the couch?" And so I look over, I'm like, "Oh man, that's Gwen Stefani." So she's like in a hoodie, like Blake Shelton was in his camo and had his beard all grown out and looked all disheveled. And I saw them in that light as well, just like normal people, and they really truly came to, say hey and say they got my back, and they were there and supported us and introduced us on stage. And man, I'd never seen that many people in one room packed wall to wall, so I think someone let the secret out that they were coming. No one told me, so I was very surprised. It was such a beautiful experience, top to bottom, and the people made it, down to the producers, even the staff. They really, it is really a positive show. They want to support the acts and bring you up, and which they did. So I'm so thankful that I did it.
That's amazing. So to get back to what we were talking about earlier with regards to Alzheimer's and your mum, from a personal point of view, I have had both grandparents, both my nan and my granddad, both suffered with Alzheimer's, or dementia as we call it in the UK. And you're right with the fight and flight thing. It's a very, very difficult thing. To say that your story brought a tear to my eye. It made me think back to my grandparents, and it's such a difficult thing to see somebody that you've known and loved, and you don't know life without them, to completely not recognize you, just you call you by a different name, no idea who you are. And then the one thing that from my experience, they go back to, I mean, like I say, mine was grandparents, so they go back to 50 years ago, talk about stuff when they were in their 20s or even teenagers and things like that, because that's the last little piece in there that's remaining. It's just such a difficult time. But I do know that, like you say, the one thing is just to bring them back to those good times and hold them close, and at some point something will kick in and they will remember, even if it's just for that short little period. They will remember.
Yes. Well, I'm sorry you had to experience that with your grandparents, Paul. It's something that's so hard to talk about. It is so it's almost like awkward. And I feel like I've taken it upon myself to bring a new light to it. And we talk about those moments. Hold on to those beautiful moments. That that's the way that we want to remember them, and do everything in your power to create those moments. One of the biggest things that you can do is be with them, play music with them, talk about old memories. That is honestly it. I'm starting to not believe in regrets, but if I could have one, like I told you, I went to war against Alzheimer's. Instead of being there with her and holding her hand and being present with her, I went out and said yes to every opportunity where I could, tell the story and help others. But man, I'm so glad that you got that time with them. And this is something I wouldn't wish on anyone, but
No.
and we're making a lot of progress. Treatments are becoming available now, and there's so many loopholes we've had to jump through for that. And there's politics behind the scenes, and unfortunately, there's a lot of money-hungry, wicked people out there that are capitalizing on a terrible disease. But we're trying to change that, So I appreciate your bravery today to talk about this with me.
Well, and again, like people like yourself keep putting it out there, and you're right about the people that are trying to make money off of these horrific things, because we hear year on year that they're making advances and there's this coming and there's that coming, and like you say, there are always people that are going to make money on it. So if people can keep talking about it and keep pushing it out there, then fingers crossed the people that are trying to make money are not going to get away with it, and these types of drugs are hopefully one day going to be available for everybody. So you are in the UK. I can only apologize for the weather.
Hey, it's been a beautiful day so far. Now, as we're talking, the clouds are rolling in, but whatever. we can bring the party, rain or shine. We're bringing the party, man. It ain't stopping us.
I was talking to, I did an interview the other day with a woman from Orlando. She works at the Universal Orlando resort. And again, I apologize for the weather. And she said, no, it's so hot in America. We love the cold and the rain. So we'll take that.
I know. I just went and bought a jacket. It's comfortable out here.
So,
I'm not mad about it.
like I say, you're in the UK. You were in Wales over the weekend performing at Party at the Porth, which I think is not a festival that too many people would have heard of, including yourself, before you found out about it. So tell us why you went to perform at a small little festival in Wales.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing about the internet. I had someone reach out to me from here. They work for a charity called Comrie Dran. I still don't think I'm pronouncing that correctly, but their focus is more so on providing financial support for caregivers. So which we've helped raise a lot of money to help fund research to find treatments and a cure. But I think the people that get, um, kind of not thrown under the bus, but don't get highlighted enough are the caregivers. And that happens on purpose because I think if you're a caregiver, you're probably the type of person that doesn't want a spotlight on you. But they need to be spotlighted because they're not getting help.
Mm.
I had to see my dad, worked a full-time job, about ready to retire, but he had to, sacrifice, going part-time to help take care of my mother during that time frame. I had to see a little sister that had to, quit her job and, do and see things that a daughter should never have to do and see. My uncle even retired early. He left Austin, Texas to move in full-time with my mom. He sacrificed everything for, almost 3 years. And then, we got to a point where we had no help. I had to write a check, pull money out of my own pocket to put my mother in a care facility center. And it bled us dry, and for us, we hit a roadblock because she was so young. There was no assistance for people with early onset. So I think it was under age 65 in the States, they wouldn't give us any help, which is complete BS. So,
Mhm.
that's what they stand for here, with Comrade Dran. And that's what we're here to do, is to, create a safe place for people to tell their stories and to shine a very bright light on caregivers, and to help them here in the UK.
Wow, it's absolutely fantastic, and I'm so glad that you came to the UK and especially Wales to perform at that because, like you say, you're doing it for a fantastic cause. So, well done on that one. However, you are about to perform in London tonight. How do you feel about performing? Is this going to be your first London show?
Yeah, first time in London. Crazy, man. I grew up in a little town in Iowa, a little country boy, so to be in London is yeah, it's kind of a pinch yourself moment, to be able to just see the world, and go to historic, well-known places and perform. And for me, it's not just about sharing my music or putting, any sort of spotlight on me. It's, we use our music to do good things. So I always say I don't care how many people hear my music. I care that the right people hear my music. And
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
London's the right people.
Well, look, we've got a huge country festival over here called Country to Country. I'm not sure if you've heard of it or not.
Yep.
But I'm sure, I'm absolutely positive that one day, you're going to be back there again in London performing at Country to Country in front of 50 to 100,000 fans. I'm absolutely positive of it, because country music is just really, it's bigger than ever. It's absolutely crazy, and in the fact that it holds the top three slots in the Billboard 100 over in America is crazy. Obviously, Jason Aldean at number one, Morgan Wallen and Luke Combs. That 1, 2, 3 is, it's just amazing.
Well, country radio is never, honestly, I never thought I'd have a record deal. Now that I have a record deal, I have a radio promo team. So we're trying to be really strategic on, if we release a single to country radio, what that will be. And so I strategically wrote a song with a friend of mine. She recently became a friend of mine. Her name is Ray Lynn. I'm sure you've heard of her.
Yes,
She
I
was on the
love Raylin.
Yeah, she has had success at country radio. So we became good friends. We wrote a song together a couple months ago, and it's a duet. We decided, and the label decided we're going to release it in September. I think you're one of the first to hear that news. So that's coming out September 29th, and we think that could potentially be the first single that we take to country radio. So I've learned a lot about country radio, through my wife, Kylie Morgan. She got a top a top 40 single called "If He Wanted to, He Would" recently.
Yeah,
So
great single, great
about
single.
ready to make that push and see what happens, man. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, listen, Jay, I love you. I love your wife. I love Ray Lynn. All of these things lead to a fantastic career and a fantastic single that I can't wait. And I can't wait to play it as well in September. So I'm really looking forward to that.